The morning sun cast long, melancholic shadows across the weathered floorboards of Maureen Mercer's kitchen in Rockport, Massachusetts. The small coastal town, nestled in the granite heart of Essex County, had been her home for over 30 years. Its harbors, once a source of comfort with their bobbing fishing boats and bustling markets, now felt more like a prison of memories. Maureen, her face a testament to 46 years and a grief that never aged, stood at the sink, mechanically washing the same coffee cup for the third time. Her mind, as it often did, was adrift in the past. The sharp knock at the door startled her from her reverie. Through the kitchen window, she caught sight of a police cruiser parked outside, its familiar black and white form sending an immediate icy chill through her body. Her hands trembled as she dried them on a dish towel and made her way to the front door. Two officers stood on her porch, their expression serious but not unkind. The taller one, Officer Brennan, she recognized from around town. "Mrs. Mercer," he began, removing his cap in a gesture of respect that set her nerves on edge. "We need you to come with us to Granite Cove Harbor. There's been a development in your daughter's case." Maureen's heart lurched. A painful, stuttering beat. "What kind of development?" "A fisherman pulled something from the water this morning," the second officer explained gently. "We believe it's connected to Laya and Daisy." The names of her twins, silent for so long, still pierced her heart like shards of glass. Without a word, Maureen grabbed her jacket from the hook by the door, not bothering to change out of her simple house dress and cardigan. She followed the officers to their patrol car, her legs feeling unsteady beneath her. The 10-minute drive to Granite Cove Harbor felt both endless and too brief. Maureen pressed her face against the cool window, watching the familiar, quaint streets of Rockport blur past. When they arrived, the harbor was already a hive of activity. Several police vehicles were parked near the docks, and she could see forensics personnel in their distinctive jackets moving with quiet, purposeful energy. Detective James Morrison stood near the water's edge, his graying hair ruffled by the salt breeze. He had handled her case from the beginning, his steadfast presence a small anchor in the storm of those dark early days. Beside him stood a weathered fisherman in rubber boots and a thick cable-knit sweater. And between them, laid out on a stark blue tarp, sat something that made Maureen's breath catch in her throat. The red radio flyer wagon. Even corroded by 15 years in the ocean, even encrusted with barnacles, and missing one wheel, she knew it instantly. Her legs nearly gave out as she approached. "Mrs. Mercer," Detective Morrison said, his voice a low anchor steadying her with a hand on her elbow. "This is Tommy Caldwell. He's the one who found it." Tommy Caldwell looked to be in his 50s, with sun-weathered skin and kind, tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shifted uncomfortably, a man of the sea suddenly thrust onto a very public stage. "Ma'am," Tommy began, his thick Massachusetts accent both familiar and comforting. "I was trying out some deeper waters this morning. Fish have been scarce in my usual spots. When I pulled up my nets out near Devil's Drop, there was all manner of trash tangled up in them. And then I saw this." He gestured to the wagon. "I remembered them flyers from back when your girls went missing. That wagon was in all the pictures. Soon as I saw it, I called the police." Maureen found her voice a thin, reedy sound. "Devil's Drop? But nobody fishes there. If it's been out there all this time, why hasn't anyone found it before?" Tommy rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, ma'am, Devil's Drop has a reputation. Jagged rocks underneath. Currents that'll turn your boat around before you know it. Lost a trawler out there in '78, the Mary Catherine. 3 men barely made it out alive. Most fishermen won't go near it. Superstition, maybe. But the sea keeps some places for herself. Did you find anything else? Maureen's voice cracked. The girls? Their bodies? Detective Morrison shook his head gently. Not yet. We've already sent divers down to search the area thoroughly. If there's anything else down there, we'll find it. Maureen crouched beside the wagon, her fingers hovering over its rugged, scarred surface. Despite the damage, she could still make out the familiar, deep scratch along one side where Daisy had gleefully dragged it against the garage door. And there, barely visible beneath the accumulated grime, were faint traces of purple, remnants of the nail polish Laia had used in her attempt to redecorate the wagon just days before they disappeared. This is definitely theirs, she whispered to Morrison, the words catching in her throat. See this scratch? And Laia, she tried to paint it purple with my nail polish. She was always trying to make things prettier. Morrison nodded, making notes. Mrs. Mercer, I need you to come to the station. We'll need to document everything you've told us and review the case files. This is no longer just a missing persons case, the wagon being found this far out at sea. Someone with a boat was involved. This is now a criminal investigation, possibly abduction. As Tommy Caldwell signed his paperwork, Maureen turned to him. Thank you, she said, her voice filled with an emotion she hadn't felt in years. Thank you for not just throwing it back. For remembering. The fisherman's weathered face softened. I got grandkids of my own, ma'am. I'll be at my boathouse today if you need me. At the station, in the same office where she'd spent countless hours in 1985, Morrison spread the thick, worn case file on his desk. Let's go through this again, he said gently. August 12th, 1985. Your daughters Laia and Daisy, 8 years old, were playing outside with their wagon. Maureen nodded, the recitation both painful and necessary. They reviewed the old facts, the familiar dead ends. It didn't make sense, Maureen said, the old frustration raw in her voice. Rockport had one of the lowest crime rates in the state. And now, finding the wagon at Devil's Drop. Whoever did this had access to a boat and knew these waters intimately, Morrison concluded. That narrows it down considerably. Someone in the fishing or harbor community knows something. He leaned back, his eyes determined. We're going to alert the community again. Re-interview everyone, especially those who owned or operated boats, in 1985. Before she left, Maureen took down Tommy Caldwell's address. She needed to thank him properly. The detective, sensing her renewed purpose, gave her a spare Nokia phone. Keep this with you, he said. We're actively working this case now. I need to be able to reach you. Yet Caldwell's property sat on a quiet stretch near the water, a modest house beside a boathouse that had seen better days. Maureen found him outside, using a pressure washer to blast years of grime from the exterior walls. Mrs. Mercer, he said, shutting off the machine. Please, call me Maureen. They sat in old lawn chairs, the air filled with the cry of gulls. Tell me, Maureen said, how has the fishing community changed in 15 years? Oh, plenty's changed, Tommy said. Lost a lot of the old-timers. Young folks don't want to fish like their fathers did. Go to college, get office jobs in Boston, can't blame them. It's hard work for uncertain pay. And whoever took my girls to Devil's Drop, Maureen said carefully, they would have needed a boat. Someone from the community. Tommy's expression darkened. Been thinking about that myself. Back in 85, there were maybe 60, 70 boats working out of Rockport. Now we're down to half that. Whoever did this, they knew these waters. The conversation drifted. Did you know my stall at the fish market? Maureen asked. Mercer's fresh catch? Tommy's face brightened slightly. Of course I did. You had the spot right at the corner. Best location in the market. Caught everyone coming in. What happened to that spot after I closed? Well, for a while it sat empty. Then Frank DeWitt took it over. He's done well for himself there. Frank? Maureen's brow furrowed. But Frank had his own stall back then. I remember. His business was struggling. I felt terrible for him. I once bought his entire stock just to help him out. Sounds like you, Tommy chuckled. He didn't appreciate it, Maureen continued. The second time I tried, he got offended. Told me to mind my own stall. He was always a prideful man. I work out on the water mostly, Tommy said, but I heard the stories. Frank did close-up shop for a while after your girls, but when he came back and took your old spot, business turned around for him. That corner location is magic. As Maureen drove away, a seed of unease was planted. She'd forgotten about the simple kindness of people like Tommy, but she'd also forgotten the sharp edges of men like Frank Dwight. The Rockport Fish Market, a place she had avoided for 15 years, still smelled of salt and fresh catch. Her old corner spot was now Frank's, a professional sign replacing her hand-painted one. A young man told her Frank was at the auction house. As she approached the large, weathered building, she heard raised voices from the side. She stopped, pressing herself against the cool clapboard wall. Told you I'd have your cash by the end of the week. It was Frank's voice, rougher than she remembered. Before late, Frank. That was the deal, said another man in a stained butcher's apron. They argued. Then the aproned man snatched a key from his truck and dangled it in the air. Frank snatched it aggressively. You'll get your money, he snarled. When Maureen found Frank back at his stall, he was all gruffness and bluster. Well, well, he said, not looking at her. After a decade, you finally show your face. I heard they found the girl's wagon, she said. I heard, he said, his dark eyes unreadable. Tommy Caldwell found it. Lucky him. Hope he doesn't use his newfound fame to open a stall around here. Market's crowded enough. He then thrust a heavy styrofoam box of fish at her. Take it. We're even now. I don't owe anyone a damn thing. The gift was both touching and unsettling. At home, she realized her old chest freezer was broken. She'd have to take the fish to the cutting house at the harbor to be processed and stored. The harbor was busy. As she pulled into a parking spot, she saw Tommy Caldwell walking quickly across the lot. An agitated look on his face, a black garbage bag held at arm's length. Tommy, what's wrong? She called. An absolutely foul smell hit her as she got closer. Someone threw this inside my boathouse just now, he said, his face flushed with anger. Caught a glimpse of someone walking away. Bald head, that's all I could make out. He gestured with the reeking bag. Driving a dark Ford F-150. Saw what looked like a sticker near the license plate. If I see it again, I'll know. At the cutting house, the man behind the counter, Mark Patterson, greeted her warmly. As he took her box of fish, another man emerged from the back to collect it. Maureen's breath caught. It was the same man from the auction house, the one in the apron, who had given Frank the key. Excuse me, she said, trying to keep her voice casual. Who was that? That's Jesse Vaughn, Mark said. Is there anything wrong? No, nothing. I just thought I recognized him. Saw him this morning, talking to Frank at the auction house. Mark's expression shifted. Jesse rarely deals with Frank. To be honest, I don't really like the guy. Frank, I mean. Leaving the cutting house, Maureen's mind was a tangle of disconnected threads. She was driving home when a car swerved recklessly around her, then pulled over. The driver jumped out, waving his arms frantically. It was Jesse Vaughn. I need to speak with you, he said, his face pale and panicked. He was trembling. What is it? Maureen demanded. Frank. He's been asking to rent my fishery house for the past 2 weeks. Jesse's words tumbled out. This morning he was different, desperate. He insisted on renting my boathouse. He paid me, God, so much money, and told me he needed to use my boat to tie up loose ends. Said he needed to get rid of something. Jesse's voice dropped to a whisper. I insisted he tell me what. He showed me a picture of twins. Told me if I told the police, he'd still kill the women and come for me and Mark. But if I kept silent, he'd make sure police never found what he did. Maureen felt the world tilt. Twins? Jessie met her eyes, tears threatening to spill. I believe one of the girls was your daughter. I saw the old flyers. And Mark just told me you were the mother. I'm so sorry. I was stupid. I was scared. Why didn't you call the police? Maureen's voice was deadly quiet. The money? I could expand my business. I was so stupid. With shaking hands, Maureen grabbed the Nokia phone. Within seconds, Detective Morrison was on the line. She relayed everything, Jesse providing the address to his boathouse. Go to the station and wait, Morrison instructed. No, Maureen said, gripping the steering wheel. She and Jesse drove to a viewing spot overlooking the harbor, a place where they could see Jesse's boathouse without being seen. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then she saw it. A dark blue Ford F-150 driving on the access road below. A faded Marine Corps sticker next to the license plate. A bald head catching the dying light. That's him, she breathed. That's Frank's truck. She started the engine and began to follow. Jesse on the phone with police dispatch. Frank wasn't heading for the boathouse. He was heading for Jesse's new fishery, a place he must have known would be deserted. He has the keys, Jesse said, his voice miserable. He took my whole keyring. Do not approach, Morrison commanded. We can't stop him on the road. If he has the girl and a weapon, it could trigger violence. Maureen parked on higher ground, watching from the trees as Frank's truck pulled up to the fishery. He got out, looked around, then went to the passenger side. Maureen's heart stopped as he pulled out a limp female form. Even from this distance, even after 15 years, a mother knows. The way her hair fell, the shape of her face in profile. It was one of her girls, but only one. Frank carried her inside. Moments later, he emerged, retrieving a coil of rope and a toolbox. In the distance, police vehicles approached, silent and swift, surrounding the building. The raid was precise. There was shouting, but no gunshots. Minutes later, they led Frank out in handcuffs. Maureen was already running. Inside the fishery, a young woman lay on the concrete floor. Above her, a rope hung from a ceiling beam. A partially tied noose. Maureen knelt beside her. The girl's eyes fluttered open. Who are you? She asked weakly. Where's Frank? I'm your mom, Maureen sobbed. The girl shook her head, fresh tears spilling. My mother's dead. Frank said she died. She looked at Maureen, confusion giving way to something else. He lied to us. He lied about everything, and he killed her. Frank killed Daisy. The name hit Maureen like a physical blow. This was Leia. In a small, windowless room at the police station, Detective Morrison read from Frank DeWitt's confession. On that August day in 1985, he had lured the twins with a promise of vanilla slices, then drugged them. He'd hidden them in his boat, moving them from place to place using a network of other fishermen, loaning the girls to them in exchange for their silence. He had told them their parents were dead. Did they never try to escape? Maureen asked, her voice a whisper. Morrison's face was grim. Daisy did. When she was 14, he paused. Frank caught her. During an assault, he cut her throat. The detective's voice faltered. He said he dismembered her body, processed it with the acid he used for fish remains, and disposed of it. The room spun. Maureen sobbed, the sound raw and broken. Why? She finally managed. Why us? Jealousy, Morrison said, his voice hard. Your seafood stall was thriving. His was failing. He blamed you. He had no family of his own. He wanted to, in his words, even the score. Take from you what you cherished most, since you had taken everything from him. The gift. The box of seafood. It was a taunt, a celebration of his victory. He had destroyed her family and taken her business. Maureen emerged from the interview room, hollowed out by the truth. Laya was coming out of another room. Their eyes met across the corridor. They collided in an embrace that erased 15 years of horror in an instant. Laya, at 23, was a grown woman, but in her mother's arms, she was 8 again. Frank had taken so much. He had murdered Daisy, stolen Laya's childhood, and shattered Maureen's life. But he hadn't destroyed their love. As they walked out of the police station into the cool night air, Maureen held her daughter's hand tightly. The road ahead would be long, healing, justice, learning to be mother and daughter again. But they would walk it together. Truth, however long buried, had a way of surfacing, sometimes from the depths of Devil's Drop, pulled up in a fisherman's net on an ordinary morning that became anything but.